Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today we're fortunate to have as our guest Aja Atwood. Aja is one of the co-founders, and she now serves as the CEO of Trella Technologies, a company through automated plant training robotics addresses some of the unique problems of indoor and urban farming. During the program, we're finding out why and how this groundbreaking enterprise came about. We'll trace its growth and development, and in the process, we'll come to better understand and appreciate their innovative approach and some of their very exciting upcoming and future plans. Let's start by meeting Aja and then finding out all about Trella Technologies. Welcome, Aja.
Thank you very much for having me.
Delighted you're here. It's been fascinating to read about the work you've been doing these past few years. Eager to find out more myself and have you inform viewers. And as a way to get to that point, would you please start sharing a little bit about your background and how that led to your involvement with Trella Technologies?
Sure. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree. I attended Northeastern University, go Huskies, and started my career as a risk engineer, which is not a typical transition for an engineer. And risk engineer is basically, I go around and I do assessments to figure out how bad will it be if a property sustains or business sustains damage from natural catastrophes or fire. And did this for quite some time, but I always had an entrepreneurial kind of appetite. And back in 2011, I started getting into automated day trading and Fibonacci trading and learning how to through software how I could automatically trade for my own personal use. Learned a lot. It was very fun. Then I moved into learning how to grow plants, but that was more of a learning process that came from my need to grow my own medical cannabis plants in my house. Back in I think it was about 2014 or so, 2013, 2014, I started to get more information through, the greatness of Netflix and YouTube about the cannabis industry. And also had some medical issues from sports-related injuries that I had in the past, and wanted to use cannabis to help with some of those issues versus some painkillers, and learned about growing plants, but also understood that there were some needs in regards to learning how to grow indoors. I had some of my own needs that I wanted to satisfy, and was part of another agricultural technology startup with that understanding, and here we are today with Trella Technologies.
Yeah, wonderful. That's interesting background and how led it up, but how did it start, like through the prototype phase that you've gone through as we start to see some of the image shortly of where you are now? I know you've gone through a number of different stages. How did you and colleagues first conceptualize this issue? Sure. And where have you gone from that initial beginning?
Yeah, so I mean, the idea came to us, kind of, out of the blue. I was growing cannabis plants in my basement, and when you're growing plants indoors, you have to deal with overhead lights and how the plants will grow. Plants are very out of control. They're very vivacious. So you have to tie them down and kind of trellis them along, nets, et cetera, to make sure that they don't grow too high, grow above your lights, et cetera. But I was also managing a team of engineers from Maine all the way down to DC, and that management position required that I traveled a lot. So I wasn't able to be there every day to maintain my plants. So a lot of the growing that I would do, I would use sensors or some sort of automation to help control the plant while I wasn't there, but there wasn't a way to control how the plant grew physically while I wasn't there. So I got together with my now co-founder, Andres Chamorro. We call him Dre. Dre and I got together and decided, hey, I wonder if is there a way that we could do this? Has it been done before? That's the first thing.
Yeah.
We did some research and found that it had not. We thought to ourselves, there must be a way to automatically train a tall plant to grow in a small space.
Oh, fascinating.
And we started from there, and we started pretty basic, just trying to prove the concept. One of the things that we decided to do from the very beginning, because this is automation and it's robotics, if you're going to do prototypes, it's going to have some cost to it. And when you're just trying to prove the concept, you want to try to make sure that you're not putting too much, you're not spinning your wheels and putting too much money into it too soon. So we did it manually. We learned how to train the plant manually and got really good at that. We did 2 trials doing it that way, manual. And then on our third design, we decided let's throw some robotics, a little bit of automation into it. And we developed a device that trains the plant to grow sideways through automation, and we'll be showing some more of how that works. 'Cause whenever we say training a plant to grow sideways, people wonder, what does that look like? How does that work?
Well, even stepping back, your initial trials,
Yes.
what was involved with figuring out that process of how to get a plant to grow sideways?
Well, I mean, when you're training a plant, you really have to be aware of what's called the apical dominant stem, the very top of the plant. The growth starts at the top. There's also, a term called phototropism. Plants will grow in the direction of the most light. So we started by studying that, phototropism, how plants grow, apical dominance, and came up with the idea that what we really need to do is trick the plant into thinking that the most amount of light is moving in a horizontal direction so that it will grow in a horizontal direction as well.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, fits so well with our focus here, Innovation Showcase. Definitely thinking both outside and in a way, as we'll see, inside the box
Right. Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Terrific, terrific. And here as we bring up you and Dre, what are the different roles that you and others play in the company?
Right. So it started with myself and Dre, both engineering backgrounds. Dre has a very, very strong background in the medical device industry and a huge interest in robotics, 3D printing, et cetera. He currently holds, I think, pending more than 30 patents.
Wow.
Very creative individual, and also a really great communicator and to work with. When we're doing our brainstorming, all ideas are accepted. No ideas are too small. They're too big. So we would just spend the first few months just brainstorming and writing ideas down. We came up with about 12 different concepts, and then we decided to wean that down into what we have now. But at a certain point, it gets a little bit bigger than just the 2 of us.
Yeah.
So we brought on a team of engineers who are remote. They help us through, we have one engineer in Chicago, one in New York, and we're able to, through the use of technology now, work remotely and design the device further. We also have a series of people helping us out with the marketing and social media. We are both engineers, Dre and I, so I always joke and say, our strength is not in marketing, so we had to bring on some people to help us tell our story.
Definitely, because I think that's sometimes a major drawback with innovators, inventors, is they come up with fabulous products like you have now, but to get it to market and to figure out how to navigate that system is a whole other set of skills.
Exactly.
Different from, in your case, background of engineering.
Exactly. But for myself, as a cannabis patient, experience with growing, I also am an advocate, for safe and regulated cannabis as well. So I do a lot of events, a lot of public speaking, in regards to cannabis and the medical benefits that it can, create. Also the business opportunities that it creates as well for the state of Massachusetts. So as the CEO, I set the vision, keep the direction, and really my biggest role is to get my team the tools they need to do the job that they need, that I ask them to do. So every day is different. In my role, Dre's role is kind of overseeing the engineering, and we have a dynamic team helping us out as well.
Well, given what's happening both, as you mentioned, throughout Massachusetts and the country, the timing couldn't be better, I think, for your innovative work that people can soon take advantage of.
Yes.
You mentioned sort of the number of patents that Dre has, and this is one I know related to the company, the patent. Could you point out some features before we look at some other images?
Sure,
please?
sure. So this version that you see here on the screen is actually a patent that we created right before we designed the fourth version. Version number 4, we call it. We worked very closely with one of the IP firms, intellectual property firms in Boston, Hamilton, Brooks, Smith, Reynolds. They were very, very gracious and partnered with us to help us really obtain both our U.S. Patent, but also we have our foreign PCT as well, so that we can try to obtain patents on an international level. But what you see here is, basically we've got a plant sitting at one end on the left. And then this is the stage that we call the flowering stage, the end process. So this has occurred after the plant has already grown the length of the unit. So it starts on one side, it grows all the way to the other. And then after that stage is over, we allow it to stretch upwards towards the lights. So what you're looking at right now is just a drawing of the plant stretching up towards the light. They are also supported by some additional levels of trellises that we have above as well. One of the other things that we had to include in this design was ventilation. When you're encapsulating a plant in this manner, in a contraption, you have to make sure that you have a lot of air movement to avoid stagnant air, which leads to moisture, which can lead to bacteria and mold, etc., which is a huge no-no, especially for people who are ingesting cannabis as medicine or people that are eating food, tomatoes, etc. So we wanted to provide some ventilation, and on that particular design, we attempted to do it on the side. But as you'll see in our next design, we moved the ventilation from the sides and put it underneath, where it's a little bit less in the way, and can still, maintain, good ventilation as well.
Before we see some wonderful video clips, we have some images that'll highlight where you stand now. What do we see here?
So right now, this is version 5. This is the version that we just finished actually building in our lab, and we're about to do a grow trial test with this version. What you have here is the very beginning stage. This is right at the beginning, after you've put the plant in the unit. So all the way to the left, you see one plant, and you can kind of see the top of a stem poking through this green ring on the top.
Oh, yes.
And that green ring is right now positioned over the top of the plant. And that ring will eventually travel down the length of our unit, so going towards the right of the screen, over time. And it does that by sensing how much foliage, how much plant matter is in that area. And when it gets to be too much, it moves, and eventually it gets all the way to the end. And this stage, this is now our flowering stage, so similar to what I showed in the patent drawing. This is the stage after the green ring has moved all the way to the end. You take that green ring off, the netting off, and you let all of those branches stretch up towards the light, so that you can get an increase in yield. That's one of the keys for this design. What we really wanted to do was control tall plants so that they can grow in small spaces.
Right.
But we also want to increase the yield that you can get from each individual plant. So our design uses what's called low stress training. And low stress training, when I say that, people think, oh, it's automated. That means you don't have to do it. There's a little bit more of a scientific reason for low stress training. Right now, when people are trellising or training their plants by hand, they're pruning, they're cutting, they're trimming. And whenever you cut, trim, or prune a plant, you stress it, just like a person.
Sure.
So if you overstress the plant, just like a person, it's not healthy. So our design uses low stress training, which means you don't have to trim, you don't have to prune, and you will not stress the plant out as much. When you have too much stress in the plant, it also slows down how fast it grows. So by allowing the plant to grow in a non-stressful situation, and training it to grow sideways and not trimming and removing a lot of biomass, we're able to get a lot out of the plant, and we're able to allow the plant to grow as fast as possible.
Nice. And this is a wonderful image of sort of overall setup.
Yeah, I love that image.
And we see the light up there.
Yes. So this is our actual real design right now. This is version 5 in our Grow Lab. So what we have a series of LED lights above. We have designed this so that it can be used with all types of lights, but we support and we use LED lighting to save on energy costs. It's the most energy efficient type of light you can use. And it also allows you to keep the lights very close to the plant. So if you're looking to utilize our system in what we call vertical racks, so multiple levels, one on top of another, you could take our unit and put them in the racks as well, and you can use LED lights overhead and keep them very close. So instead of having one level on the floor, you can have, depending on the height of the building, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels.
Wonderful.
Yes. So this is it, and we're getting prepared right now to put a plant to do our 5th grow trial in that unit right now.
Nice, nice. We're fortunate to have a couple of short video clips to just enrich our conversation. And
Sure.
the first one is a virtual reality experience. Could you just say a quick word about that before we roll in the clip?
Yeah, so what we did in order to try to show our product to growers to get feedback, we did a couple of trade shows. The unit doesn't travel very easily, so instead of having to bring it to each individual trade show,
Right.
we decided to try to create a virtual reality experience that shows how the product works. So we used our CAD model, put it in a virtual reality environment, and then showed it to a bunch of growers to get feedback. And this is a video that we put together to kind of wrap it all up so that we could use it for social media as well.
Wonderful. Well, let's take a look at the clip and then continue our conversation.
So what you have here is we just put the plant in. So you put it in when it's young. We call it a seedling. It goes in on one end. You close it up, put it back together, and then over time, as the plant grows, that green ring will move to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So right now you're looking at it in kind of the middle of the vegetation process, we call it. Those are the fans underneath. We took the fans from the side and put the fans below. So right now we're highlighting the fans. There's a mesh panel that encapsulates the plant on all sides. It's breathable, allows enough light to get through, and access as well. You can remove those when you need to. This is the end of the vegetation process. So we've allowed it to grow all the way to the right, and now it's time to flip into the flowering process.
Well, that's fascinating. Just from the couple of prototypes that you've mentioned today, interesting to see how you've redesigned things like the ventilation and the growth space. Just great to see innovation take place.
Thank you.
And what you and Dre and others involved have been conceptualizing, and just the fortitude it takes to go from initial idea to now your 5th prototype.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And where do you think you stand now as far as maybe getting it to the extent you'd like it to then maybe bring it to market?
Yeah, so we consider this to be our MVP, our minimum viable product, and we are right now working to complete our design package so that we can scale it up for production. So design for manufacturing is the stage that we're in right now, and we're hoping to get these out in the market by March of 2020.
Wow, so not too far away for sure.
No, we've got work to do.
But I bet it seems like pedal to the metal.
Yep.
We have another nice short clip that's time lapse of the growing process.
Yes.
So people can get a sense, just before we see it, how long is the growing process to get like a full crop involved,
Right.
and what's involved?
So it depends on the type of plant and the size of the unit that you purchase from us. We do provide the unit in a 4-foot long length and a 6-foot long length,
Okay.
as well as custom sizes. So we tell people it can start, the vegetation process can be from 6 weeks to 2 to 3 months, depending on the type of plant you're growing. And then the flowering process is usually dictated by the plant as well. So roughly 3 to 5 months per harvest is what you can expect.
That's another point before we see the clip that I know companies involved with is diversifying the plants. Would you just say a quick word about your intent with that?
Yes, so right now we're so when we came up with the concept, I was lucky enough to run into an angel investor who said, figure out what the need is before you just design, an invention. What's the true need? And one of the things that we realized while researching the vertical farming industry, so that's the industry where they're doing multiple levels of plants, multiple stacks, one on top of another, is that the majority of the plants in those spaces are short. They're shrubs, lettuce, microgreens, herbs, very short things. But what about the robust plants, the plants with a lot of fruit, a lot of weight to them? So we designed this really to target that market, to allow people to diversify the types of plants that can be grown indoors. And what we really want to do is get this to the point where we're able to grow trees inside.
Oh, fabulous.
Can you imagine what we can do if we're able to harvest trees indoors? There's lots of possibilities with that as well.
Wow. Well, let's take advantage of this clip and watch the time-lapse growing experience.
Excellent. This is our version 4 that we're showing in this time-lapse video. So what you have is one cannabis plant that started on the left, and over time is slowly growing towards the right. The green leaves are coming through that ring. That's the ring, that's the apex ring we call it, sensing how much growth is there, and when it's too much, it moves to the next location. Back and forth movement that you see are the fans that were on the sides. We took those off and put those below. And now this is the second stage, the flowering stage. So when we get to the end, we take off the mesh and we just let all those branches stretch up towards the light. That's a natural process. All of the plant wants to get to the light on its own. You don't have to do much to help it with that. And then eventually it flowers to the point where you're ready for harvest.
That is a very robust crop indeed.
Thank you.
Wow. What's been the reaction and feedback, both from maybe people in the industry and just general public to your efforts?
Most people are amazed when they see it.
Yeah.
It's never been seen before, never been done before, and you know, there's a lot of possibilities with it. We have cannabis growers, hemp farmers that are all interested in being early adopters or beta testers for one of these units. So we have a lot of interest for sure. We also have a few, urban farmers and nonprofits that just have, farms and food deserts that potentially would like to use this as well. So people are excited about it and waiting, waiting for us to actually, get them to market. So we're working as fast as we can.
Really hasn't been that long, but when you look back to your initial idea of growing and where you are now, what are your sort of reflections about that whole process?
Oh, wow. It's substantially different than what we first envisioned, but what we did is we'd always try to just keep our focus on the main goal, which was to grow a tall plant in a small space. But when it came to starting out as a grower, there were about the first 2 years of my experience of learning how to grow, I just did not know really where I fit in the industry. What was my role? And as an engineer, I really had to take a step back and say, okay, your role is to help this to be sustainable, so that people that put a lot of effort into starting up their grow, when the market gets competitive, when the prices of products start to dip, we're going to have to be very smart about how we're growing, specifically, cannabis and hemp. The prices that we're seeing right now will not remain. So to be smart about it, efficient, automated as well, will definitely be a need, so we hope to fill that.
Moving on to automated, we have a few images that you're incorporating an app. Could you speak how that's going to coincide with the plant growing?
So one of the great things about this is that we can grab data. Everyone loves data. So one of the things that we've done is we've included a group of sensors in our unit. We have a temperature sensor, humidity sensor, and currently a CO2 sensor. And we'd like to add a few more as well. But what we're doing is we're tracking how fast the plant grows, and then also showing to the user what's the temperature, humidity, and CO2 based on your growth rate, how fast you're able to actually grow that plant. So this app will really be designed to allow a grower to look back at the data and figure out what were the optimum settings that they should use to have a faster harvest based on temperature, humidity, and CO2.
What's the status with the app right now?
So right now it's in development stage, the very beginning. We do have our wireframes developed, and we have the overall user experience laid out. We have our database that's now accepting data. So as we do our grow trials, we're starting to build on our own database. So it's in the beginning stages, and that's one of our tasks for this year to complete.
So there's a hope that that would be ready when the product's out on market?
Yeah, our beta testers will probably have the experience of the very first app version, and then we'll build and modify as we go from there. We're right now toying with the idea of whether we should stick with a desktop version and go straight to a phone app, but there's a lot of possibilities with it. Yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. And just another reminder with this image of the setup.
Yeah, so this is at the end of the vegetation stage. So the green ring that's on the right started all the way on the left, but this is showing it at the end of that stage, right before you're about to flip into flower. So this is this is one of my favorite moments when you've gotten to the end and now it's time to reap the benefits.
And I know in this stage, you're also at a crowdfunding
Yes.
event.
Yes. So we're doing what's called Regulation Crowdfunding. It's a way to raise capital through online public offering. It's called. It's an SEC regulated platform. Enables entrepreneurs, startups to receive investment from anyone, family, friends, early supporters. You can set the terms, the way that you like, and it's one of the methods or one of the instruments that we've been using to raise capital. It's been starting. I think we're about in our 3-month mark right now. We have, a year to do as much as we can. And if anyone is interested in learning more about Trella and becoming an investor, please visit StartEngine.com, and you can search for Trella, or simply you can go to Trella.io, our website, and click the invest button. It'll take you right to StartEngine.
Nice, nice. It's been fascinating to hear not only you explain the plant growing and what Trella's involved with, the technology and innovative approach, but hearing you speak of the process you, Dre, and others have been involved with. Could you just share in the minute or two we have left maybe a little bit about you and your colleagues' thoughts about the innovation process and how you go about tackling these issues throughout from beginning to where you are now, say?
Yeah, so for us, one of the biggest issues with innovating when it comes to agricultural technology is that it's based on the timeline of a plant growing. So that can take up to 5 months, and you don't want to wait to learn something after 5 months. So what we did is we tried to come up with questions that we needed answered, and tried to figure out what can we answer as soon as possible. We don't have to wait until the end of the grow trial. So every time we started a grow, we would try to answer those questions. If we could answer it within a month, we would answer it within a month, and then start the redesign process right away. So there's always kind of an overlapping that's going on, where we have just finished, like for example, we just finished building version 5, but version 6 is already modeled. So we're always trying to make sure that we're layering our work, so we're building and innovating each revision as we go along.
Nice, nice. And maybe just looking ahead to the future, I think you gave us a little tease earlier. Once this is up and running, where do you see Trella Technologies in the upcoming future efforts?
Yeah. Well, I always joke that what I really would like to do with this is to grow a peach tree in my basement. I don't know if I can replicate the peaches from Georgia, et cetera. But we really want to see this utilized on a large scale. It has the capacity to be on NASA shuttles. We are going to be growing food in locations that we've never really experienced before. You could grow in a freight container, but you can also grow and figure out a way to get tall plants, in places like Mars, et cetera.
Wow.
Also, if we're able to grow trees indoors on a massive scale, there's a lot of opportunity that we can do in regards to energy efficiency and recycling air and removing CO2.
Fabulous, fabulous. Wow. From what was a kernel of an idea, you've come so far, and the future seems so bright.
Thank you.
Continued success with your efforts. Look forward to when the product makes it to market.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time. Terrific job.
Excellent. Thank you very much.